Okay, well, I think it's about time for us to get started today, and I would like to take the honor of introducing John myself, since I've had the privilege of working with John here at MCC for the last number of years. Certainly has been an addition to the faculty at MCC. John also participates as an adjunct faculty for Iowa Wesleyan College, has been a visiting professor at Moscow State University and Vista University in Port Elizabeth, South Africa, among many other things that he's involved in, including AMPAL, Americans and Palestinians for Peace, which he founded, in fact. So John was born in Jerusalem. He grew up in Ramallah. He graduated from Alaya, did I pronounce that properly? College? Oh, thank you, John. Attended Bethlehem University, earned his BA in Business Administration and Economics, then has his master's degree in economics from Kutztown University, Kutztown, Pennsylvania. He's currently working on his PhD at Iowa, while he's also teaching at MCC, doing trips to other lands as a representative of the institution. He has chaired Muscatine's sister cities and has been on the board for any number of years here. He, as I said, directs AMPAL, and he actually, a little known fact about John, when he was in high school, he helped us set up start the Palestinian student movement. So, with that, John?
Thank you, Tom.
The podium is yours.
Thank you. Well, thanks a lot, and thanks for inviting me to talk about, I think, very important topic right now, and we hear about it a lot when we hear the media or when we read the newspapers. I'm here today to talk about something called MEPI. And MEPI stands for the Middle East Partnership Initiative. Let's give you some sort of background behind that initiative. First of all, the Secretary of State, Colin Powell, announces this initiative on December 12, 2002, during a dinner meeting at the Heritage Foundation. And I would like to quote a couple statements. He said, "I'm announcing today an initiative that places the U.S. firmly on the side of change, on the side of reform, and on the side of a modern future for the Middle East, on the side of hope. It is a bridge between the U.S. and the Middle East, between our government and our people, an initiative that spans the hope gap with energy, ideas, and funding." So he announces this on December 12th during that dinner. If you look at this initiative, the initiative can be divided into three major parts. One, economics. Two, educational. And three, political opportunities. And also, he included also what we call the exchange of cultures between the U.S. culture and the Middle Eastern culture, because for most of the time, I think a lot of people in the United States does not have really a good idea about the Arab cultures or the Middle Eastern culture. It is really very rich culture, if you think about it. It didn't start 200 years ago or 300 years ago. We are talking about centuries and centuries and centuries of culture. He assigned his deputy, Richard Armitage, as the coordinator for the initiative. And also he committed the United States to $29 million to further this initiative. Now, the first question that we have to ask here will be, now if we take the $29 million and divide it by the number of people of the Arab world or the Middle East, you will come up with almost less than 10 cents per each individual. Now, if we want to say that we are very serious about a change in the Middle East, don't you think that we need more than that in order to really create a real change? And this will be the question. And so far, really, we don't have an answer for this question. On the other hand, if we look into the funding that Israel, which is one country in the Middle East, that receives every year from us, and if you take the number and divide it by the population of the state of Israel, you will end up with close to $3,000 per individual. So we, as you see, like when you look at numbers, you see that we have really a big difference between the funding that we are trying now to fund, as I said, and I think personally as very important initiative, and the funding to only one country there also for other reasons. Now, if we want to take every part of this and talk a little bit about each one of them. So, for example, if we start with education. Now, the partnership or the part of the education in this initiative talks about, for example, creating some sort of programs and exchange programs between US colleges and universities and, let's say, Middle Eastern colleges and universities. Also, that part of the initiative created what we call a scholarship program for any student from the Middle East, undergraduate student, let me be more specific, undergraduate student from the Middle East that wish to come to the United States and study at any college and or university. For example, that's part of it. Out of the $29 million that he put into that initiative, it will be around 7.4 million for education out of the 29. Also, the initiative is trying to promote what we call the active learning. For example, it could start by teaching English and making sure that most people or most students know English in the Middle East, so that you can create what I will call a communication channel between Middle Eastern youths and United States or American youths, and also introduce different kinds of active learning, such as connecting schools to internet, active learning, and so on. That's in terms of education. Now, in terms of, for example, economic reform, that initiative promised what we call an assistance in financial reforms for government across the region. So that's one thing. And as we know, if you really follow our foreign policy towards the Middle East, we know that some of the Middle Eastern countries are receiving an amount of money every year, such as Egypt, for example. They are the second on that list after Israel when it comes to US funding per year. So they also are trying to promote a system to eliminate the corruption in the financial system there and in governing, again, the countries. They also promise to assist the Arab countries who are members in the World Trade Organization to become more active in that organization. So that's more, again, for the economic side of this. But also, the initiative called for making civil society more and more strong in the Middle East, or stronger in the Middle East. What I mean by that, the initiative, if you look at it, promote the idea of supporting the NGOs that we have in the Middle East, the non-governmental organization, and also called for a new NGOs even, or the establishment of new NGOs. The initiative also called for training process, or creating some sort of training process to train potential political candidates in the future too. And also talks about like the freedom of speech, media, news, and so on. Now, this is a summary of the initiative. Now, the question that we have to ask ourselves will be, should the Middle East initiative not come from within? And this is the most important question that we need to answer, whether we in the United States or whether they in the Middle East. Now, in the beginning when Secretary Powell announces that initiative, and when President Bush also talked about it in November of 2003, that initiative was received in the Middle East in a positive way. A lot of Arab countries start taking that initiative and studying that initiative and try to do some changes. Now, the problem with that is for some reason, somehow, that concept of partnership between the US and the Middle East countries is not there anymore. It's more like that initiative is becoming more like a one-sided initiative. You need to take it. You need to accept it as it is, rather than try to sit together and talk about it and try to somehow reach a consensus about what we need to do next. Now, I will guarantee that a lot of people in the Middle East want to see changes. They want to see that. They want to know, they want to feel that they are free when they talk. They want to see that they have future if they live there. They want to see that it will be very easy for them to achieve their goals when they set their goals. But the problem with that we have to remember is that even though the Middle Eastern people wants to do this, even though they would like to achieve this, the problem will be is that there is no Middle Eastern country will accept the US telling them that this is the plan and you have to take it. That means you are not giving them a choice. That means you are not telling them that you're going to become part of that initiative. And in order for this initiative to work, we definitely has to work together. It is a partnership, and you cannot establish a partnership and make all the decision for your other partners or on behalf of your other partners. Otherwise, you can call it something else. It will not be a partnership by any means, if you think about it here. As I said, the Arab world in the beginning accepted this initiative. They try to facilitate and work their best to change and start working towards reforms. And we have too many examples that we can give. For example, what happened in Jordan as a result of that, what happened in Yemen, for example, as a result of that. They started too many projects as part of this initiative in order, again, to improve, let's say, the welfare of their peoples in their countries. But when that initiative became an issue of you need to take it, you have to take it, or you must take this initiative, and you cannot change things, it became a problem. It became a problem for many reasons. And the question is, why did it change? And I really cannot give you an answer. We don't know why did it change. But it is different than what we call December 12, 2002, when Secretary of State Colin Powell announces that initiative. It is totally right now different than before. Now, the most Arab countries and most Arab people feels that if we have to change, this change has to come from within. We are capable of making these kind of changes. We have a very well-educated people that can take on an assignment like that or a work like that and makes it different after that. We are not lacking the education. We are not lacking, again, the initiative. And we are not lacking the motive to change. But at the same time, if we ask ourselves also a question, now if this initiative is a true initiative and we have to work very hard for it to change the Middle East, don't you think that we have to start with some of the Middle Eastern countries that are very strong ally with us. For example, Kuwait. We protected Kuwait against the Iraqi invasion in 1990 and 1991. Last week or 2 weeks ago, we signed an agreement with Kuwait. And now we look at Kuwait as a strategic partner in the Middle East, outside the NATO, okay? But let's look at Kuwait here in this case. Well, if you are telling me that women in Kuwait does not have the right to vote, does not have the right even to drive a car, I will agree with you. I will agree with you. And Kuwaiti government and Kuwaiti people needs this change the most. Out of the 21 Arab countries in the Middle East, I will not, and this is the big mistake, I will not look at the whole 21 Arab countries and classify them the same way. There are big differences and major differences, for example, between comparing Lebanon as a country that practiced democracy for years and years and years with Kuwait. I will not compare the Palestinian people who are trying, even though they are under every day under all this political, again, problems and troubles and so on, I'll continue to try to practice their democracy too. So I will not compare this, for example, to Kuwait or Saudi Arabia. So if we want to create something like that, we have to be more specific, and we have to tell people that even our best allies, like Kuwait and Saudi Arabia, that you have to start that initiative first, because you need it the most, more than any other country in the Middle East. Now, the question is, right now, is this initiative truly for changing the Middle East, creating democracy in the Middle East, helping the Middle East people, or is this initiative we created to serve our own interest? And I will guarantee that most Middle East people look at it as it's an initiative that is created to help the U.S. interests in the Middle East. They don't believe, or most people in the Middle East right now don't believe, that the U.S. is serious about a change, about democracy in the Middle East, because the U.S. government continue to support certain government regimes in the Middle East, like, as I said, Kuwait and Saudi Arabia and so on, that prevent any kind of democracy. You cannot even talk in Kuwait or Saudi Arabia against let's say, the family or the government there. You have no freedom of speech there. Well, if that's the case, why we don't start the change there before we started all over the Middle East and group the whole Middle East and put them in one pot and start talking about the whole thing? Right now, every Arab country and Pakistan as a Muslim country rejected this initiative. After that change from partnership concept to, again, you have to take it, you have to do it, it's our way. So right now, we really don't have a one yes from any Middle Eastern countries that we will take that initiative and we'll try it. That doesn't mean the Middle Eastern people don't want to change. That doesn't mean Middle Eastern people don't want democracy and wants also, more participation in the political, again, process. But it means that they are looking at this initiative as you must take it. And for Middle Eastern people, they are refusing now to take that. Now, is it serving our purpose by changing that concept from a partnership to one-side type concept? No, it's not. It's not. So if we are really serious about the change in the Middle East, we definitely need to go back to that original concept of forming a real and true partnership with the Arab countries, with the Middle Eastern countries, and work together in order to achieve that. Otherwise, I really don't see that initiative succeeding in the Middle East, really. And that's, again, my personal assessment, too. And it's not, I mean, I keep, you know, I watch the news all the time from back home. I read the media in most of the Arab countries, from Egypt to Jordan to Syria to Palestine to all these countries. And I will guarantee that this initiative has no support whatsoever right now. And as I said again, it is sad to say that, because I think this initiative has really a very good elements for a change. And it is very important, I think, to go back to the original idea of this initiative and try to again apply that. Now, some reasons why the Arab countries and Pakistan decided to reject this initiative right now. One of them is their Islamic identity. They fear that this initiative might lead to the disappearance of the Islamic identity of the Middle East and, let's say, Pakistan. And that's the main reason, or one of the main reasons why they are doing this. As I said, there is a very, very strong opposition to any foreign intervention in the Middle East. And if I may expand on this, is that a lot of people in the Middle East, whether it's right or wrong, that's not the issue, but a lot of people in the Middle East look at the United States foreign policy as a one-sided policy rather than a balanced policy in terms of too many issues in the Middle East. So that's again a major issue. They look at it as an initiative that will underline the sovereignty of their states too. And that was also one of the reasons why they decided to reject that. And the major one out of all this, out of all these reasons why they decided to reject, will be the Palestinian dispute or the Israeli-Arab conflict. This became, in the Middle East, the core issue. Whether they are right to think this way or wrong, again, that's not the issue. But this is the core issue in the Middle East. Without solving the Palestinian dispute or the Israeli-Palestinian conflict, there will be no improvement. There will be no, I would say, stability in the Middle East. Because most people think about this dispute as the core issue in the Middle East. If we like to reduce the feelings or certain feelings against the United States in the Middle East, I will guarantee that we can achieve that by becoming a real partner in solving that dispute, and solving that dispute based on justice, again, for both parties. But as far as we still have this issue, and as you know, that conflict started, I mean, if I want to pick a date and say 1948, even though it started way before that. But even if we go back to 1948 all the way till now, we're talking about more than 55 years of major dispute in the Middle East. And every single dispute in the Middle East goes back to that issue or that conflict. So if we are, I think, if we are to solve this, if we are to succeed, if we are to change the Middle East, if we are to encourage democracy, if we are to encourage peoples and intellectuals in the Middle East to take a role in a new Middle East, we definitely need to become a stronger partner in solving that dispute. As you know, President Bush, after he was elected as president, he promised to solve the Palestinian-Israeli issue. He promised that he will support the establishment of the Palestinian or independent Palestinian state by year 2005. But here is a proposal, and here is an issue that after we talk about it, we decide to put it on the side. We decide to step on our own issue and continue to be one-sided and continue to support one state in that Middle East and continue to play unjust role in that conflict. Unfortunately, unfortunately, since that issue or that initiative of working very hard to establish the independent Palestinian state up until now, the Israeli Prime Minister Sharon visited the White House 14 times. He was welcomed in the White House for 14 times. And on the other hand, he will be in the White House April 14th, next week. He will be visiting again to discuss the disengagement plan, again, that he is trying to promote. But on the other hand, when Arabs look at this issue and seeing that our president is welcoming Sharon to the White House for 14 times in the past 2.5 years, and not extending any invitation to the Palestinian side, they look at it as a biased foreign policy towards them. Other issues that we have to keep in mind. Arab people, as I said again, or Middle Eastern people are not fools. They are very intellectual. They have a very, very strong culture that they are proud of. They are very educated. And they are looking into, again, certain things. And they are talking about, well, how can the United States promote democracy in the Middle East when people in the United States are losing their freedom too? So how can we play that double standard? I don't know how many of you heard about that. Last year, April of last year, the third ranking senators in Senate from Pennsylvania, Rick Senator, he proposed with a senator also from Kansas, Brownback. Both of them proposed a change to something called Title IV of higher education in universities and colleges in the United States. And let me just give you a simple idea about that change. So far, of course, it's just a proposal. They didn't vote on that. They didn't pass that. And I'm hoping they will never be successful passing something like that. But the proposal, I mean, if you look at it, is very simple. Senators Sandstrom and Brownback, they invited very influential Jewish lobbyists and Israeli lobbyists to meet with them in Congress and came up with a plan. And if you look at their proposal, it's very simple. What they are saying, what they are suggesting here, and I will read that to you. They are suggesting to cut any federal funding from American colleges and universities if those institutions are found to be permitting professors, students, and student organizations to openly criticize Israel. That's the summary of that proposal. So far, as I said, it's a proposal. And they came up with this proposal last year, April of last year, after a meeting with a very, again, influential Israeli lobbyist in the United States, again, and they're talking about that. Well, the question that we have to ask both senators who are trying to sponsor this bill, since when it's a crime to criticize a foreign country in the United States? And I really don't, I have my own answer for that. But I mean, these are issues that we have to think about. These are issues we have to think about. And people in the Middle East know about these issues too. They are not, as I said, they are not fools. They are very intellectual and they are very educated. Okay? And we are hoping that this proposal will never even go on the floor of the Senate, even to discuss.